we're going to do the Mangalacharna to the 6 Goswamis as we do every day to invoke their mercy. Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipuno Saddharma Samstapako Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuvane Manyo Saranya Karo Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Nande Namataliko Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyugo Shri Jiva Gopalako Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyugo Shri Jiva Gopalako. And the translation: I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis, namely Shri Sanatan Goswami, Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Srila Jiva Goswami, and Shri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, were very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus they are honored all over 3 worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha Krishna. We are continuing with chapter 3, entitled The Eligibility of the Candidate for Accepting Devotional Service. So you can repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So yesterday we discussed how Srila Prabhupada is not just a regular Uttama Adhikari or a Mahabhagavata, but Srila Prabhupada is a little more than that or beyond that, which includes being a Mahabhagavata and a Uttama Adhikari. And Srila Prabhupada falls in the category of a Shakta Avesh avatar, which means one who was especially empowered to come to this planet and to absorb us and introduce us rather, and then absorb us in the process of devotional service of Krishna consciousness. So he is outstanding even within the disciplic succession, Srila Prabhupada, which is actually the mercy of the disciplic succession also in that way. So we're going to read from the Nectar of Devotion itself on page 29, second paragraph, the third paragraph, and the fourth paragraph. So I'm going to read now, and we're going to just discuss thereafter, but it's important that we absorb what we are reading also, so it'll help me not to repeat some points if you just be attentive in the reading itself. So I'm reading chapter 3, Eligibility of the Candidate for Accepting Devotional Service, and we're on the third paragraph. Devotees may be divided into 3 classes. Sometimes Prabhupada calls it 3 levels. The devotee in the first or uppermost class is described as follows. He is very expert in the study of the relevant scriptures. And he is also expert in putting forward arguments in terms of those scriptures. He can very nicely present conclusions with perfect discretion and can consider the ways of devotional service in a decisive way. He understands perfectly that the ultimate goal of life is to attain to the transcendental loving service of Krishna. And he knows that Krishna is the only object of worship and love. This first-class devotee is one who has strictly followed the rules and regulations under the training of a bona fide spiritual master and has sincerely obeyed him in accord with the revealed scriptures. Thus, being fully trained to preach and become a spiritual master himself, he is considered first class. The first class devotee never deviates from the principles of higher authority, and he attains firm faith in the scriptures by understanding with all reason and arguments. When we speak of arguments and reason, it means arguments and reason on the basis of revealed scriptures. The first-class devotee is not interested in dry, speculative methods meant for wasting time. In other words, one who has attained a mature determination in the matter of devotional service can be accepted as the first-class devotee. Next, the second-class devotee has been defined by the following symptoms. He is not very expert in arguing on the strength of revealed scripture, but he has firm faith in the objective. The objective of this description is that the second-class devotee has firm faith in the procedure of devotional service unto Krishna, but he may sometimes fail to offer arguments and decisions on the strength of revealed scripture to an opposing party. But at the same time, he is still undaunted within himself as to his decision that Krishna is the supreme object of worship. Then we come to the next class. The neophyte or third-class devotee is one whose faith is not strong and who at the same time does not recognize the decision of the revealed scripture. The neophyte's faith can be changed by someone else with strong arguments or by an opposite decision. Unlike the second-class devotee, who also cannot put forward arguments and evidences from the scripture, but who still has all faith in the objective. The neophyte has no firm faith in the objective, thus he is called the neophyte devotee. Put me back on the screen. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I'll just drink a little water and then we'll move on. I would like to go systematically and with great care and attention. If you are able to focus and absorb, would be nice. See? It's an important subject. I just read from the Nectar of Devotion, given by Srila Rupa Goswami as Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, about the description of an Uttama Adhikari, a Madhyam Adhikari, and a Kanistha Adhikari. And it's interesting that the paragraph begins with the sentence, devotees may be divided into three classes. So Srila Prabhupada uses the word may be divided into three classes. In other words, we are making a sort of distinction, and at the same time, we are making a sort of discrimination in our theoretical explanation for now. And we should be careful not to judge devotees based on these different levels of devotees. One has to be careful for that. So I'll come to the point of how one should actually practically apply how to associate with these different categories of devotees. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada makes the point, devotees may be. It's not necessarily one has to divide them into these categories, but may be divided into three classes. So let's begin with the beginning class devotee. In other words, all of us, it depends when we have joined and depends on our internal state of realization in Krishna consciousness, and it also depends on our steady practices of devotional service, which is sadhana bhakti. So all of us came through this particular stage. And the Sanskrit word is called Kanistha Adhikari. Now, sometimes, in sort of devotee circles, they may use this word in kind of jest or in a joking way. They may say, oh, what do you expect? He's a Kanistha. Right? It gives like a derogatory sort of feeling to that when somebody says like that. Oh, what do you expect? He's a Kanistha. As if the person who's saying such a thing is like on a higher level of consciousness. Like a Madhyam Adhikari or a Uttama Adhikari. So one is actually, already applying it in a relatively, you could say, not so good consciousness. So one has to be careful for that. But there's a deep meaning of the word Kanistha Adhikari. Kanistha basically means, in other words, sometimes they may say, a devotee may say that, well, what do you expect? He's a neophyte devotee. He's a neophyte. See? So Kanistha in English means a neophyte devotee. It is like that. So in the Nectar of Instruction, there's further sort of this nice practical descriptions of this, which supports the descriptions from the Srimad Bhagavatam as well as Chaitanya Charitamrita, and as well as the Nectar of Devotion here. So sometimes the word Kanistha refers to somebody, which is the word used in the Nectar of Instruction, Prakrita Bhakta. So the word prakrita has a connection to sort of being not materialistic in the sense of the non-devotees, but prakrita bhakta or kanistha adhikari, beginning devotee, neophyte devotee, these are different meaning, different words for the same type of person and consciousness. So prakrita means the devotee comes with materialistic desires. Now that's all. That's almost all devotees, unless they are continuing the devotional service from the previous life from a deeper level or descending from the spiritual world. That's a little different, like Nitya said. But generally, when one comes to Krishna consciousness, one comes with one set of, you could say, values that one lived with in the material world. And those values were generally materialistic. And therefore, prakrita means, in a sense, materialistic devotee. So in other words, the devotee is materialistic because he's just beginning to come to Krishna consciousness. He's not so well versed in what actually is Krishna consciousness, although he may be practicing under the guidance of experienced devotees. So this devotee, who's known as a neophyte, he is received, you could say, is received Harinam initiation. That means he has taken a vow to chant in a minimum 16 rounds daily and to follow the 4 regulated principles. However, in the Nectar of Instruction, it says that this type of devotee is trying to chant the holy name. In other words, a lot of effort is involved to actually, especially chanting his japa or her japa. They try to chant their japa. Sometimes it may be very difficult to chant. So this type of devotee from other devotees, this devotee should be respected within the mind. You must respect this devotee at least from the mental level. See? And at the same time, one should help this type of devotee. One should help this type of devotee to progress further. Compassion from somebody who is a more experienced devotee. See? Now, this devotee also, this beginning devotee, neophyte or Kanistha Adhikari, the devotee is more attracted to the deity in the temple. You know, he likes to come to the temple just to see the deity. And then not, you could say in one sense, take too much association of devotees. And there may be a reason for this devotee to do that. Because he knows that he does not know how to behave towards devotees or even people in general. Does not really know that. He's not experienced it. And he needs to be trained. So therefore, education and training in Krishna consciousness is a continuous process, also eternally, irrespective of which level and what realization a devotee may have internally. So this is a Kanistha Adhikari, also known as a Prakrita Bhakta, where one comes to Krishna consciousness with one's material desires. And sometimes one's material desires may be mixed up, thinking that, this is like part of Krishna consciousness. So one needs education, training, and to be under the shelter of experienced devotees. And as this devotee progresses under the shelter of the spiritual masters as well as experienced devotees like Shiksha Gurus, then one can progress to the stage of what is called Madhyama Adhikari. And a Madhyama Adhikari is one who's called an intermediate devotee. Intermediate. So the Kanistha Adhikari, or the first one we discussed, is that he is initiated, but the Madhyama Adhikari, due to having some internal realization and becoming more fixed, he feels that he feels fixed in a sense, and therefore he is actually initiated. These words are used in the Nectar of Instruction, purport to text number 5. So the first person is initiated, and the Madhyama Adhikari is actually initiated. He has that sense within his own internal feeling in his heart. See? So what happens is that in order to properly associate with different levels of devotees, one must be at least on this level, which is called Madhyama Adhikari. And the Madhyama Adhikari is very seriously engaged in devotional service. He makes it his very existence of life in that sense. And the Madhyama Adhikari has a feature when he preaches. He has a feature which is like a normal feature for a preacher. And that is the Madhyama Adhikari, worships Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the highest personality of love. In other words, has some affection for Krishna. And the Madhyama Adhikari, he makes friends, with the Lord's devotees, with other devotees. Is very friendly to everyone. Even if someone does not see him as friend, but he sees everyone in a general sense as friendly. And the Madhyama Adhikari, the intermediate devotee, he is merciful to the innocent and ignorant persons out there in the world. And therefore he looks for them specifically where he or she can preach to these innocent and ignorant people. And finally, the Madhyama Adhikari, if he sees that he's preaching to somebody and he's getting nowhere, and that person may fall in the category of being envious, or rather also being an impersonalist or an atheist, then he avoids such persons as a preacher, the Madhyama Adhikari. Okay? So just to repeat, the Madhyama Adhikari avoids those who are not favorable in the sense that they may be atheists, or they may be impersonalists or Mayavadis, or even plain envious of devotees. And he preaches to the innocent and ignorant, and he has a nice, relationship, friendly with all devotees, as well as he has some love. He has love, and he worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Radha and Krishna. Okay? Now we come to the Uttama Adhikari. And I'm going to tell you what the Uttama Adhikari, I'm paraphrasing the Uttama Adhikari from the definition given in the Nectar of Instruction in text number 5 purport, because it gives a nice, you could say, practical definition of the Uttama Adhikari. Now, before I do that, sometimes, some people may have heard, possibly from others who may have some limited understanding of Srila Prabhupada's purports. And I may also have some limited understanding, but I do study Prabhupada's books for many, many hours and for many, many days. But sometimes somebody may say that the only Uttama Adhikari in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness is Srila Prabhupada. So they say there's only one Uttama Adhikari. But that will sort of like undermine Srila Prabhupada's compassion and causeless mercy. Because Srila Prabhupada also has given us the process of devotional service that can bring forth people to the platform of being Uttama Adhikaris in our movement. Yes, he has done that. He has done that. So it's not nice to actually hear that Srila Prabhupada is the only Uttama Adhikari in ISKCON. No, that's not nice at all. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada gives us a clear practical definition of Uttama Adhikari, and guaranteed, in your own devotee community, you don't have to be considering even, your Diksha Guru, your Shiksha Guru, or sannyasis, and so forth, who don't even sometimes live with you, some of them. But you consider the devotees will live amongst you, and you'll find that there are many, many Uttama Adhikaris in ISKCON. But that Uttama Adhikari I'm speaking about is how you see them. But it's not that how they see themselves. There's two different perspectives here. So I'm going to discuss that also shortly. So now I'm going to paraphrase Prabhupada's definition of Uttama Adhikari from the Nectar of Instruction. And Prabhupada says that an Uttama Adhikari is not really interested in blaspheming other devotees. In other words, he can change a situation that's blasphemous to become positive even amongst devotees. So he's not really interested in blaspheming devotees. And therefore, that person's heart is quite clean and completely pure and realized in Krishna consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada said, out of many such devotees or Vaishnavas, even in your own community, one may be found to be very seriously engaged in the service of the Lord and is strictly following all the regulative principles. And one chants one's prescribed number of rounds of japa daily, and one is always thinking of how to preach and expand and spread Krishna consciousness all over the world through the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And then Srila Prabhupada said such a devotee should be accepted as an Uttama Adhikari and is highly advanced, and his association should always be sought. And then Srila Prabhupada adds that such a personality, Uttama Adhikari, he can be recognized by his or her ability to have that potency to convert or to make many devotees by preaching to the fallen souls to come to Vaishnavism or the process of devotional service. So I will repeat the number of points for this definition of Uttama Adhikari, and you can immediately remember in your consciousness positively, oh, I know that this person fits that description right here in my community. 1, he's not really interested in blaspheming other devotees. See? And I can think of I can remember one person right now, right in Malaysia, who's one of my close friends in ISKCON. And he is not really interested in blaspheming anyone. And his name is Shiva Chaitanya Prabhu. I'm sure you also know him better than I do, but we are close friends over the times I've been visiting there. See? And therefore, such a person's heart is completely clean because he has some deep realization in his heart of Krishna consciousness. And such a person is very seriously engaged, see, in devotional service. So number 1, not interested in blasphemy, because one is clean. Number 2, very seriously engaged in devotional service. 3, strictly follows all the regulative principles. 4, chanting the prescribed number of rounds of japa daily on beads. And 5, always thinking how to expand the Krishna consciousness movement. And you can recognize such a person by how many devotees from the non-devotee world he brings into the practice of Krishna consciousness. So these are the 5 symptoms that you can see in somebody else, not in your own self. That's the difference here. It's a very important point to make. So now I'm going to summarize in 5 categories. The beginning devotee, which is called Kanistha Adhikari, the intermediate devotee, which is called Madhyama Adhikari, and the devotee, topmost sometimes they say, is called the Uttama Adhikari. So let's look in the category of japa only. See? The Kanistha Adhikari, this isn't Prabhupada's purpose, but I just tableized this for all of us. In relation to japa, The Kanistha Adhikari chants at least 16 rounds. And 16 rounds is enough. That's how they feel. The Madhyam Adhikari, he chants minimum 16 rounds. That means he'll do 17, 18, 19. That means for the Madhyam Adhikari, 16 rounds is not enough. See? And the Uttama Adhikari, he will chant also minimum 16 rounds, and 16 rounds is not enough. But whenever he gets the opportunity thereafter, he's always chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. He's always chanting. That means he's always engaged in chanting. If he has some practical service, he'll complete that, but if he has time, he'll always engage in chanting. That's the Uttama Adhikari. Now let's come to the 4 regulative principles in each category. The Kanistha Adhikari is trying to follow the 4 regulative principles with effort. See? And is especially trying, the Kanistha Adhikari, to control his mind, which sometimes tells him or her, these principles are hard to follow. Why don't you break them? But he still follows the principles with effort. See? However, the Madhyam Adhikari, the intermediate devotee, he follows the regulative principles with not much effort. In other words, even if the idea comes in his thought, he doesn't give it much attention into action. Not much effort is involved. However, the Uttama Adhikari, the topmost devotee, does not know that he or she is following the regulative principles. Because of the deep absorption in Krishna consciousness, which includes chanting, hearing, preaching, engaging in practical devotional service, etc. In other words, they're too busy to be concerned about the regulative principles because it doesn't bother them in any way. So even breaking the regulative principles doesn't even enter their mind. This is Uttama Adhikari. They're too busy because of the deep absorption in devotional service. So that's B. The first one was about japa in all 3 categories. Second one was about the 4 regulative principles, following them in all 3 categories. The third one is serving itself. So the Kanistha Adhikari, the beginning devotee, because one is on that stage, one prefers to just serve the Guru and to serve Krishna. And one may also feel sometimes as a Kanistha or beginning devotee, maybe I'm a favorite or I'm a favorite disciple of my spiritual master. And they only see mainly the Diksha Guru. They may even forget about who helped them before initiation and even after initiation, the Shiksha Guru. So this is the beginning stage devotee. Then the Madhyam Adhikari not only serves the Guru, Shiksha and Diksha Gurus and Krishna, but the Madhyam Adhikari loves to serve Vaishnavas. Loves to serve Vaishnavas. So that's the secret. Loves to serve Vaishnavas. And I mentioned this in previous talks on the Nectar of Devotion series, that if you serve Krishna and don't serve Guru, then Krishna is not pleased. But if you serve Krishna and you serve Guru and you don't serve the Vaishnavas, then Krishna and Guru are not pleased. But if you serve Krishna and if you serve the Gurus and you serve the Vaishnavas, then Guru, Krishna and the Vaishnavas are pleased. So that's the secret to come to Madhyam Adhikari platform. And from that platform, when one is, comfortable in serving Vaishnavas, then one can discriminate properly how to relate and associate with different devotees. Now the Uttama Adhikari serves the Vaishnavas, he serves the spiritual masters, also serves Krishna, as well as the Uttama Adhikari has this kind of transcendental vision of seeing all others in this world as potential devotees. It does not discriminate, or this person is not qualified and that person is not qualified. That person is like Srila Prabhupada, who is a Shakta Vesh avatar, but an Uttama Adhikari sees that everyone else also is a potential devotee if they're not devotee yet. That broad heartedness and full of compassion that spring forth from the deep recesses of the heart. That means it's free from envy of every living entity. See? Now will come the question. Will come a very, very important question. Now, does the Uttama Adhikari, sometimes this discussion is there amongst different circles of devotees who teach, maybe Nectar of Devotion and other books in relation to the subject. So the question is, does the Uttama Adhikari descend to the Madhyam Adhikari to preach? This is the question. Does the Uttama Adhikari descend to the Madhyam Adhikari platform to preach? So I'm going to read about this from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. And everyone can repeat after me. Okay? Everyone can repeat after me. Now, before I read that, I wanted to discuss something else, which will make sense after the reading. Now, sometimes we notice that we get confused. Like yesterday, I was making so many points. So I just want to clarify that. But sometimes we get confused. How does that person who's not in Krishna consciousness and who's in the innocence of his ignorance of the material world, how does that new person become attracted to bhakti, to Krishna consciousness, and then starts practicing Krishna consciousness or engages in devotional service? How does that new person? So yesterday I was trying to explain this a little bit more, and I had a sense of in my recollection after I spoke to you that maybe I should discuss it a little bit more and then go forth to answer that question. Does an Uttama Adhikari come down, the topmost devotee, come down to the platform of Madhyam, intermediate devotee, to actually preach? Then I'll discuss that question. See? So now, sometimes someone may say that the cause of getting Krishna consciousness for a new person or bhakti to engage in devotional service is the mercy of Krishna. But then the objection may be raised that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and he has to be equal to everyone. Pandita Samadasha, in that sense. So then how Krishna can give bhakti to one person and not give bhakti to another person? So that means Krishna may be partial and it could be a fault. See? Then someone may give another answer that one gets bhakti, that means that new person, someone who's new, that person gets bhakti by the mercy of the devotee. But then again, somebody may object that the objection could come that if the devotee gives mercy to one person and not to another person, then the devotee also may be partial. He may be prejudiced. Okay? And that could be a fault. Okay? But we have discussed who's the preacher in the Uttam, Madhyam, and Kanistha divisions or levels here, or classes. So we find actually the Madhyam Adhikari is not a fault for the Madhyam Adhikari, because the intermediate devotee, because he makes distinctions. And the distinctions of the Madhyam Adhikari is that he offers his love to Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead. He makes friends with the devotees, is merciful to the ignorant and innocent and preaches to them only. And he avoids those who are envious by nature, which is the impersonalists or Mayavadis and the atheists, and those who are plain envious. So he already is doing that. He already discriminates in 4 ways. And therefore, it's not the fault of the Madhyam Adhikari that he is the preacher. So therefore, in a sense, we could say that this bhakti or the process of devotional service or being introduced to Krishna consciousness to a new person comes by the mercy of a Madhyam Adhikari Vaishnava. See? So therefore, the Uttama Adhikari, and we'll come to the question, can also preach and also give bhakti, even to new people. See? But he may have to come to the second class level to discriminate. See, he may have to come to the second class level to discriminate. So we're not sure about that yet until we answer the question that I'm coming to. See? Now, why not the Kanistha Adhikari or the beginning devotee? Why can't he bring someone to Krishna consciousness? In that sense. Why? Because the beginning devotee, he does not have so much of internal realization in the process of devotional service or bhakti. In other words, it's not potent enough to actually give it to others. But we'll reconcile that also how a beginning devotee can also be a preacher and bring people to Krishna consciousness later on. I'm just keeping to the definitions of these 3 levels to make a point, but we're going to reconcile that anyone can make others devotees irrespective of the level of the devotee. See? So therefore, in general, when we actually preach, it's not so easy to assess who will be receptive or not. And that's why, we have the tendency to just like sort of at that moment, on the street or distributing books, you may choose somebody at random. You're not making like an internal effort. No, I don't like that one. I like that one. You're just choosing someone, and so many people are going past, and that person you chose. But it's not like you neglected the other persons. It's coming to that point. And Lord Chaitanya's mood is that Lord Chaitanya does not consider who is fit and who is unfit to receive the mercy to come to devotional service. Okay? So now we come to that question. Does the Uttama Adhikari actually come down to the Madhyam Adhikari platform to actually preach? Or can he not just preach, from the highest level of being an Uttama Adhikari? So let's read this verse. If you like, you can put it on the screen, Krishna Prema Prabhu. It's from the Madhya Lila chapter 16, and it's text number 74. It's one of the best descriptions to answer this question. Does an Uttama Adhikari actually come to the intermediate, sort of a lower platform, to preach or not? And the answer is yes, and the answer is also no. So I'm going to read this purport to reconcile these 2 sort of differences or opinions that we have.
Chapter 16, Maharaj?
Chapter 16, Madhya Lila,
Okay.
text 74.
74.
I need the purport also. You have to go to the purport. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, I'm reading the text. I'm reading the text itself. Yanhara darshane mukhe aise Krishna nama tanhare janiha to me Vaishnava pradana. And the translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Let's get to the translation, please. Translation. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, quote, a first-class Vaishnava is he whose very presence makes others chant the holy name of Krishna. Now, while I read, a first-class Vaishnava is known as a Mahabhagavat, an Uttama Bhagavat, or an Uttama Adhikari. So these names are given to that person. Mahabhagavat, Uttama Bhagavat, or Uttama Adhikari. So in the purport, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that if an observer immediately remembers the holy name of Krishna upon seeing a Vaishnava, that Vaishnava should be considered a Mahabhagavat, a first-class devotee. Such a Vaishnava is always aware of his Krishna conscious duty, and he is enlightened in self-realization. He is always in love with the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, and this love is without adulteration. Because of this love, he is always awake to transcendental realization. Because he knows that Krishna consciousness is the basis of knowledge and action. He sees everything connected with Krishna. Such a person is able to chant the holy name of Krishna perfectly. Such a Mahabhagavata Vaishnava has the transcendental eyes to see who is sleeping under the spell of Maya, and he engages himself in awakening sleeping conditioned souls by spreading the knowledge of Krishna consciousness. He opens eyes that are closed by forgetfulness of Krishna. Thus, the living entity is liberated from the dullness of material energy and is engaged fully in the service of the Lord. So put me onto the screen and we'll come back to this. Srila Prabhupada is very clear here that this topmost devotee known as a Mahabhagavata or Uttama Bhagavata or Uttama Adhikari is a preacher. And he says very clearly that such a Mahabhagavat devotee, he has this transcendental eyes to see who is sleeping under the spell of Maya and engages himself in awakening them from the sleepy state of Maya conditioned souls by spreading the knowledge of Krishna consciousness. So this is the first, you could say, proof that the Uttama Adhikari, he's a preacher also. And he's not really coming down in this sense now. Okay, so I'm going to continue to read from that point on. I'll read again. Such a Mahabhagavata Vaishnava has the transcendental eyes to see who is sleeping under the spell of Maya, and he engages himself in awakening sleeping conditioned souls by spreading the knowledge of Krishna consciousness. He opens eyes that are closed by forgetfulness of Krishna. Thus, the living entity is liberated from the dullness of material energy and is engaged fully in the service of the Lord. The Madhyamadhikari Vaishnava can awaken others to Krishna consciousness and engage them in duties whereby they can advance. He is also a preacher, Madhyamadhikari. It is therefore said in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 6, verse 279, Loha ke yavat spasi hema nahi kare, tavat spasa mani keha chinnite na pare. Quote, one cannot understand the value of touchstone until it turns iron into gold. Unquote. One should judge by action, not by promises. A Mahabhagavata can turn a living entity from abominable material life to the Lord's service. This is the test of a Mahabhagavata. Although preaching is not meant for a Mahabhagavata can descend to the platform of Madhyam Bhagavat just to convert others to Vaishnavism. So Prabhupada, sort of supports this descending to the lower platform now. However, earlier he says the person can preach. I'm reading on. Actually, a Mahabhagavata is fit to spread Krishna consciousness. That means he's a preacher. But he does not distinguish where Krishna consciousness should be spread and from where it should not. That means he doesn't make distinctions. He thinks that everyone is competent to accept Krishna consciousness if the chance is provided. Although Srila Prabhupada says he may descend, at the same time he says he's still in that consciousness that everyone can become a devotee. He doesn't discriminate. And then Prabhupada supports this in the next sentence. A neophyte and intermediate devotee should always be anxious to hear the Mahabhagavata and serve him in every respect. What does this mean? That means the Mahabhagavata is a preacher. So how is it that a neophyte and a Madhyam Adhikari, intermediate devotee, should take his association because they can also learn how to preach from him? I'm reading on. The neophyte and intermediate devotees can gradually rise to the platform of Uttam Adhikari and become first-class devotees. Symptoms of a first-class devotee are given in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 2, Text 45. Sarva bhuteshu ya pasyat bhagavat bhavam atmanaha bhutani bhagavatyat mani esha bhagavato uttama. When teaching Sanatana Goswami, the Lord further said, Shastra yukte suni puna vritta shradayandra uttama adhikari sehi taraye samsara. Quote, if one is expert in Vedic literature and has full faith in the Supreme Lord, then he is an Uttama Adhikari, a first-class Vaishnava, a topmost Vaishnava who can deliver the whole world. He's a preacher and turn everyone to Krishna consciousness. So much reminds us of Srila Prabhupada. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 22, text 65. I'm reading on. With great love and affection, the Mahabhagavata observes the Supreme Personality of Godhead, devotional service, and the devotee. That means Bhagavan, Bhakti, and Bhakta. He observes nothing beyond Krishna, Krishna consciousness, and Krishna's devotees. The Mahabhagavata knows that everyone is engaged in the Lord's service in different ways. He therefore descends to the middle platform to elevate everyone to the Krishna conscious position. So Srila Prabhupada ends with this statement again, that he may come down to the Madhyan platform. Now, how to further understand this more clearly? Now, the topmost devotee, the Uttama Adhikari or the Mahabhagavat or the Uttama Bhagavat, that person who is in that state of internal Krishna consciousness doesn't know that he is an Uttama Bhagavat. He doesn't know that he is an Uttama Adhikari. He doesn't know that he is a Mahabhagavat. So that's the first perspective. That's the first perspective. So I'll give you a practical example of this. Now, if somebody is sort of intoxicated with, position, power, influence, and if somebody wants to get more and more followers like that, he wants to be recognized as a Uttama Adhikari or Mahabhagavat. He wants to be recognized like that. So therefore, his followers will say, but you are an Uttama Bhagavat. And he will say, yes, I am an Uttama Bhagavat, and bring people to me. That means immediately one should know that person is not an Uttama Bhagavat. Because Uttama Adhikari, a Mahabhagavata devotee, does not know that he or she is that. See? So because he or she does not know that he is that, then one applies some common sense when one preaches. See? And the common sense that one preaches is the category of a Mahabhagava, at least the category of a Madhyam Adhikari. See? So the Uttama Bhagavat doesn't know he is that, for the Uttama Adhikari. So therefore, how can he come down to the Madhyam platform? He cannot, because he doesn't know he is an Uttama Bhagavat. So that's the first point. See? However, an Uttama Adhikari, Uttama Bhagavat or Mahabhagavat, they do not know the internal state of Krishna consciousness. But when they do preach, it is like this. It is like this. See? It is as if that if you have a relationship with somebody and you have faith in them, and the other person is also a very important devotee, but you don't have relationship and faith as close as you have to, say, Govinda Das. But there's also Gopinath Das, but you're not close to. See? So when Govinda Das asks you a question, you may give an answer to Govinda Das that is sort of like more deeper and more intimate because you're related at that level. And with Gopinath Das, you're still friends with Gopinath Das, but you're not closely connected as like intimate friends. See? And if Gopinath Das asks the same question, then you may answer a little differently. Automatically, you'll answer a little different. Not that you're withdrawing the intimate answer you gave to Govinda Das, and you're not giving that to Gopinath Das. It is just a natural thing. A natural thing. Like, for example, the son may do something unfavorable. See? And he's very close to his mother. So when the father comes home, then the mother tells the father in like a cushioned way what the son did unfavorably because of the relationship. But then the father will say, look, don't tell anyone outside the family about our son. And when somebody comes home, like, a friend or relative, oh, how is your son? Oh, he is okay. He is okay. It's a natural thing. It's a natural thing. See? So therefore, somebody who doesn't know that he's an Uttama Adhikari, he doesn't really descend to the Madhyan platform. Now, obviously, that's the personal perspective of the person who does not know that he or she is an Uttama Adhikari. Now, others may see that person as an Uttama Adhikari or Mahabhagavat or Uttama Bhagavat. But the person doesn't become intoxicated. Yes, I am that. Bring me more followers. Let them touch my feet. No, he doesn't do that. Because internally he feels he's not that. But if they are recognizing him for his Krishna consciousness, then he just says, well, this is actually how Srila Prabhupada is. This is how my Shiksha Guru is. This is how my Diksha. It's not really me. I'm getting their mercy and you're seeing that. Okay? So therefore, there are two perspectives. One is that the Uttama Adhikari doesn't know that he's coming down to Madhyam to preach because he doesn't know that he's an Uttama Adhikari. And therefore, he naturally does things. Naturally does things. Whereas the devotees in general may see him as a very exalted person. But he himself does not see himself as that. See? So therefore, this is two perspectives here. And therefore, from the perspective of the devotees in general, when they see that, they say, oh, he is an Uttama Adhikari, but he has come down to the Madhyam Adhikari to preach. But the Uttama Adhikari himself doesn't know he's doing that, because he doesn't know he's an Uttama Adhikari. So this is one important point. And I'll give you various examples. When Srila Prabhupada himself I mean, he's actually beyond being Uttama or Bhagavat. He's actually a Shaktavesh avatar. When Srila Prabhupada himself, when somebody asks him, who is Krishna? Srila Prabhupada will give a very simple answer. Srila Prabhupada says, Krishna is God. And when somebody else asks him, who is God? He'll say, God is Krishna. That's all. And in some cases, Srila Prabhupada will not even use the word Krishna according to the level of the questioner and how he wants to reciprocate with him to keep him favorable or connected to Krishna consciousness even after that. In some cases, Srila Prabhupada said, and all religions, if they teach love of God, then follow that. And follow that. In other words, he doesn't specifically use the name Krishna. So therefore, naturally, one will reciprocate with the consciousness of somebody out there, a new person, and then preach accordingly to that person by really not giving him an overdose of Krishna consciousness, but giving him or her, the new person, in the right dosage that they can digest and assimilate and then come for more, and then increase the dosage according to how they can respond or reciprocate by coming into Krishna consciousness gradually and then fully integrating into practicing devotional service. All right. Now, I'm going to reconcile something else, and then I'm going to take questions on the subject if possible, like that. Now, this question can arise: who is a pure devotee? This question can arise. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Madhya Lila, in chapter 15, text 106, purport, Srila Prabhupada says something amazing. Srila Prabhupada says that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that a person who simply chants the holy name even once, he becomes perfect. Or rather, you could say that he's on the path of perfection. And that person should be regarded as a Vaishnava or a potential devotee. Now, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur quotes Srila Rupa Goswami, which Prabhupada quotes also from the Upadeshanamrita, which is the text number 5. Krishneti yasya giritam manasa adriyata, that verse. And there, in this relation to this purport, which I just mentioned from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Prabhupada further says that when one is situated on the neophyte platform, beginning devotee, Kanistha Adhikari, then that person may not understand the devotional ingredients of a pure, unalloyed devotee like an Uttama Adhikari. He may not understand that. However, when that neophyte or beginning devotee, Kanistha Adhikari, engages in devotional service, under the protection and shelter of Shiksha and Diksha gurus, and if he especially engages in deity worship and follows the order of the pure devotees, including the spiritual master, then he is considered a pure devotee. That beginning devotee, Kanistha Adhikari. And therefore, Prabhupada says, in the mood of making everyone in ISKCON a missionary, a preacher in ISKCON, even if you're beginning to come to ISKCON also, even if you're not even chanting 16 rounds yet, but chanting some number of rounds. And Prabhupada says, anyone can take advantage of hearing about Krishna consciousness from such a devotee, and the caste becomes gradually purified. So in other words, any devotee, who believes that the holy name of Krishna is identical with Krishna, Nama Chintamani Krishna Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, is a pure devotee, even though that devotee may be a neophyte, or maybe a Kanistha Adhikari, or in the beginning stages of devotional service. And Prabhupada concludes and he says, by the association of such a neophyte devotee, others may also become devotees of Vaishnavas. Others may also become that. So what does this mean? What does this mean? It means simply that if you are following the 4 regulative principles yesterday, and you may be in the beginning stages like a neophyte devotee, it doesn't matter. See? And if you chanted minimum 16 rounds of japa yesterday, and if you only honored Krishna Prasada, in other words, food cooked by devotees and food offered by devotees only. See? So that is a very important factor. And, you may, if you had the time, apart from your duties as a family member, responsible family member, but we have the time, you may have engaged in some practical devotional service. If you did that yesterday, then you're a pure devotee for yesterday. If you do that today, following the 4 regulative principles, chanting minimum 16 rounds, and only honoring Krishna Prasadam, and engage in some practical service if the time allows, then you're a pure devotee for today. Even if material desires haunt you like a ghost in your mind, but you're not moving those desires to action. And if you do that the next day and the next day, you're a pure devotee day after day after day until your last breath. Now, you can imagine, I said earlier on that how you can identify Uttama Adhikaris in your own devotee community. Now let's broaden it. I'm sure you can identify many, many more devotees, even if they are Kanistha, as pure devotees, who are following the 4 regulative principles, who are chanting minimum 16 rounds daily, and who are only honoring Krishna Prasada, and engaging in some practical devotional service. But most important of all, almost every day, we should also become gradually free and free and free from Vaishnava aparadha in not offending devotees. So therefore, who knows? There are so many pure devotees around us. See? But don't do this one. Don't say to somebody else, Prabhu, I am following the 4 regulative principles. I am chanting minimum 16 rounds, and I only honor Krishna Prasad. And as far as possible, I don't think I'm offending anybody. And I engage in practical service every few days a week in our local temple. Prabhu, now you see, you must see me as a pure devotee. Don't do that. Don't do that. This is from your perspective to only see others. Not that you act in such a way that others see you as a pure devotee. Because even the Uttama Adhikari doesn't know he is pure. So he doesn't act in such a way that he must maintain his level of being Uttama Adhikari or Ma Bhagavat. He doesn't need to do that. Because he doesn't know he's an Uttama Adhikari. So therefore it is very important discussion of how to see others. So therefore I will sort of conclude this discussion and then take questions for the next 15 or 20 minutes. But I just want to conclude with one thing. We have 4 things in ISKCON. One is books are the basis, right? 1, preaching is the essence. 2, utility is the principle, and purity is the force. Let's take this purity is the force. Okay? Now, what is purity is the force? Are you going to tell somebody, Prabhu, I've been around even longer than you, so maybe I'm more pure than you. Can't you see my purity? Not like that. So purity is the force, means to have the force or potency to always see purity in others, other than in your own self. So I'll repeat, purity is the force to have the force or potency to see purity in others. That's all. Don't worry about anything else. And that will help us to always, as best as we possibly can, to have favorable association of devotees, irrespective of which level, which that particular devotee is or not. Okay? Let us take some questions. Anyone? You can speak about different things if you want, or maybe questions outside of our discussion if you like. We have about just under 20 minutes more.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, this is Satyabhama.
Satyabhama, please come onto the screen.
I am online.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
I can
Krishna.
see
Thank you,
you.
Maharaj.
You're welcome.
Nice class, Maharaj. Thank you again. But I have just one question. We spoke about how the Uttamadhikari should not be feeling that he is Uttamadhikari. That's one of the disqualifying points, that if somebody starts thinking that they're Uttamadhikari, that means they're not. I have
Certainly
a question. Yeah. But what I have a problem with is that sometimes, I'm classifying people as Kanistha Adhikari. So we tend to get into that oh, he's a Kanistha Adhikari. That's why he's behaving like that, or that's why she's. So how do we stop from doing that?
Were you with me at the beginning of our class today?
I missed the first 15 minutes a little bit.
Yeah, that's how I introduced it.
Okay.
That people will say, "Oh, what do you expect? He's a neophyte."
Yeah.
And he's a Kanistha. That is in the beginning of the class I brought about.
Okay.
I introduced the whole class from that perspective. Yes. So maybe if you get a chance, Krishna Prema Prabhu can send you the link of the recording and you can see it.
Okay, Maharaj, I'll do that. Thank you.
In other words, one has to be careful with this thing that one should not label. It's a loose language. Oh, he's a Kanistha. Oh, he's a neophyte. So that's why he's doing it. But not realizing that maybe one is oneself a neophyte after 15 years in Krishna consciousness. And he's just like 1 year in Krishna consciousness, so you expect him to be a neophyte. See? So therefore, you expect him because he's 1 year in Krishna consciousness, but you're not knowing in your 15 years, he has reached your level and you are still a neophyte.
Yes.
Although he is there in 1 year. So therefore, when we say that purity is the force, means that to have the force or potency to purity, to see purity in others, indicates that when you see the purity in others, that purity enters your heart. See? But when you see impurity or faults in others, that also enters your heart, plus your fault of seeing impurity and faults in their heart. See? So therefore, we could see that little, goodness in people, that little thing, whatever little they have, magnify that and see, okay, he is pure to this, he is pure. So therefore, that is very important. That's how I introduced my class today, that we loosely use this word, Oh, he's a neophyte, he's a Kanistha, as if you're speaking amongst your devotees and your friends that all of you are Uttamas or Madhikari. We should be careful. That could be not construed well in one's own consciousness internally. Satyabhama, is that okay for now?
Yes, Maharaj, thank you.
You have another question?
Not right now.
Okay, other questions from other devotees?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, come onto the screen.
Yes, Maharaj.
Anjana Gopika, you are with your child, and that's taking some time to ask your question. So can you ask your question,
Yes.
please?
Maharaj, when we realize after so many years also still we are neophyte, and then I read in Srila Prabhupada's book, at least we should come in the Madhyama Adhikari. Means how we can rectify ourselves and then progress in the Madhyama Adhikari platform.
Oh, you mean you want to make spiritual advancement? That's what you're asking?
Yes.
Yes. You should not worry about your own spiritual advancement. You should always see how others are advancing so nicely, sometimes even better than you. That is how you'll make spiritual advancement. Is that all right?
Okay, Maharaj. Thank
In other
you.
words, see how others are doing so nicely. See how others are trying their best to engage in Krishna consciousness. Even if you feel you are better than them, that's all right. But bring them to your level. And then even if they become better than you after you bring them to your level of practice in Krishna consciousness, it is your glory, your mercy, that the student excels the teacher, that the son or daughter excels the mother or father, and they become very happy. So we should see it like that. But at the same time, we should be very practical. And very practical means we should become fixed in our devotional practices, especially our sadhana. That's all that's needed. And when you come to the point of your morning program or sadhana, when you come to the point to feel that, I am rising early for Mangal Aarti because I cannot do without this. I'm going to chant my japa in the morning just after Mangal Aarti because it is my very food. It is my very nutrition. If I miss this, I don't feel fulfilled for the rest of the day. I don't feel comfortable with myself. So when we become fixed in our sadhana, especially trying to rise early and especially trying to chant our japa and at least try to read and hear Srimad Bhagavata, these two things must be done in the morning if we can. On a regular day, of course. If you're taking an early flight or if the body is not well, you need to take care of your health, that's a little different. But on a regular day, these things should be done. That's all that one needs to do, is that one should not bother so much. So therefore, I said in the very beginning that Prabhupada said that, devotees, these words, devotees may be divided. This first sentence in the Nectar of Devotion, in the third paragraph on page 29, the devotees may be divided into three classes. And therefore, the very first line I said that Prabhupada says may be divided into three classes. So we should not try to discriminate, or maybe he's Uttama, Madhyam, Kanyasta. Don't worry about that. And you should not even discriminate with your own self. Maybe, I'm 15 years in the movement. When do not have any qualification or eligibility, as this title of this chapter is, it is a picture of the candidate for accepting devotional service, as the title of this chapter suggests. I have no eligibility. I don't deserve to be in Krishna consciousness. Actually, I'm so fortunate that the devotees are keeping me with them and engaging me in devotional service. But however, my sadhana in the morning, especially my chanting, and I'm repeating, and especially me trying to get up early to chant, this is my very food. This is my very life and my very nutrition. And you don't have to worry whether you're Kanistha, Madhyam, or Uttama. That will automatically internally come in your heart without you knowing it. And that's the way. And it's going to be all the time. You'll never know it. So always see to have the force or potency to see the purity in others. Okay, so it's a nice question for the benefit of all from Anjana Gopika Mataji.
Maharaj, I have one question related to this. Means how we can make a proper decision, just make sure we are not only do the household duties and forget Krishna. Means how we can make a proper decision to progress same time, Maharaj. Means
You are asking the same question, Anjana Gopika, that you asked a few classes ago.
okay.
You must always check if you're not sure. Would your Prabhu at home was also a devotee? You must also check with your Shiksha gurus and other members of the community. And I know you're in a place in the US where there's no devotee association, but there's also the telephone, there's also this internet, there's also this WhatsApp or whatever, you go through that. And like how you're talking to me, you can talk to many other devotees that know you. See? At the same time, I am getting to know you. In other words, you do not know me well and I do not know you well. But you may say, but Maharaj, you're a sannyasi, I can speak to you like that. No, we're not talking like that. You have faith and relationship in devotees, including your family members, including other devotees that brought you to Krishna consciousness, as well as you can connect with them to the phone, internet, and other means. Is that all right, Anjana Gopika? Then you can decide with them what's the best decision to make in various circumstances.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you, Maharaj. So my daughter is asking, how can Garuda can eat meat? She is asking.
So then my question would be, how can Krishna can swallow a forest fire with so many snakes in them? Garuda is a bird. Garuda is like in the category of eagles. And the form of an eagle naturally is, can eat non-veg. So that's the nature of Garuda. But Garuda does not eat snakes as people eat snakes and non-veg. Garuda purifies them. When he eats one snake, that soul, that soul that took birth in that snake body gets a higher birth to come to Krishna consciousness. That's Garuda's mercy. That's Garuda's mercy. See? And if Garuda comes, and if Garuda looks at me, and he says, you're also looking nice to eat, he may not do that because he sees that we are trying to be devotees. Garuda doesn't eat devotees. But what if I'm a snake in a human form? It's like, there are human beings who are worse than snakes. It's like a human being is envious and a snake is envious. And Srila Prabhupada says that a snake, you can control the snake by mantra. And it's controlled. It will become docile and it won't attack because of its envy. But with the human beings who are acting in like animals in human beings and other ways, no matter how much mantra you use, you cannot remove the envy except by Krishna consciousness. So if Garuda comes and eats up a human being who's worse than and worse and more envious than a snake, that human being will be purified and take to Krishna consciousness in the next life. Ask your daughter if that's okay.
Okay, Sana. Yes, do you understand? Yes, ma'am.
But we don't do that because Garuda has special nature. We don't have nature of eagle, or a vulture. We don't have such nature. Our nature is that we are human beings and we only honor Krishna Prasad, which is vegetarian. It's just an offering to Krishna. Okay, let's take the next question from someone else. Anyone there? Anyone with any question?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, there's one Mataji, she wanted to ask question, but she don't wish to show her face in the video.
So tell her ask the question without me, like she's depriving us of a darshan, but she can ask the question. Let she go ahead.
Okay. Her name is Jolia Kaur. Mataji, you can, Hare Krishna Mataji, you can ask the question.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I saw that you put it there that the fourth purity is force. And then I asked what is the meaning of utility is the principle. However, Superior Kulkarni Mataji has already explained that it is the utilization of all resources to serve Krishna.
Yes, wonderful.
So
Utility is the principle is also that if you possess a husband or a wife, you can use them in Krishna consciousness. Yes, anything that's under your care and influence to use in Krishna consciousness. You can use your car, you can use your money, you can use your home. Utility is the principle. See? And the nice thing about utility is the principle. I'll end with this for today. Srila Prabhupada was in the Krishna Balaram Mandir. Right? And it was during the daytime, the sun was already up, late morning. And he was walking around with his, leading disciples, looking at the mandir and so forth, the walls. And he was very happy with what they did. So Srila Prabhupada, he turned his head and he looked in one corner, see? And the sunlight was shining there. And everyone looked at that place also, but they couldn't figure out what Prabhupada is looking at. So Prabhupada looked at that corner and the light was shining. I mean, the sunlight was shining. And Prabhupada said, "Can't you see?" Everyone, they looked again, they can't see. Okay? Again, this Prabhupada said, "Can't you see?" I was wondering, what they were doing wrong here. They were like, nervous now, the disciples. Again, Prabhupada said, "Can't you see?" So although it was bright daylight and the sun was shining, Srila Prabhupada could see that in the corner the light was still on. And he said, "Switch off the light." So that is called utility is the principle. In other words, we are wasting Krishna's electricity. We should not waste Krishna's electricity. Neither at the same time, we should not waste water. See, that is called utility is the principle also. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, "Rasoham apsakunteya," and Shashi Suraya, that I am the light of the sun and I am the taste of water. Rasoham apsakunteya. So that is utility is the principle. And that is part of being responsible in Krishna consciousness. So finally, I'll conclude with a nice saying from Srila Prabhupada, who said that in order to be Krishna conscious, first you have to be conscious. When you're not conscious and you feel you're Krishna conscious, then you may be irresponsible. So therefore, be conscious first in order to be Krishna conscious. Thank you all very much. We'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow and being with you all and diving into this ocean of nectar of devotion. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Gaudiya Vaishnava Vrinda
Ki
Jai.
Jai.
Srila Rupa Goswami
Hare
Prabhupada ki
Krishna Maharaj.
Jai.
Jai.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Maharaj.